We've got Noctua Cooler, Noctua RAM, non-Noctua stuff, Noctua Cables, Noctua Fans, Noctua GPU, and a Noctua screwdriver, and this is gonna be a Noctua PC. This video has been brought to you by NEWEGG and their FantasTECH sale. This is their biggest sale and loads of tech is on the sale. We're talking about GPUs, CPUs, laptops, desktops, other components. So if you're into tech, it's definitely worth checking out. So if you've been thinking about upgrading or perhaps getting that tech that you've been thinking about, then right now is a really good time to check this sale out. If you're not sure what to get or what specs to get, then highly recommend check out the Laptop Finder and PC Builder that can easily help you. The sale is on from 10th of July to 14th of July, so don't miss out. I'm gonna leave the link in the description below as well as some of the best deals that I have found. I'm also gonna make a live stream tomorrow to go more in depth about some of the deals that I'm finding then when it's live. But go check it out before I do the live stream in the links below. Thanks NEWEGG for sponsoring this video. And we've got Noctua Cables here as well. These are specially custom made from Cable Mods, and Cable Mods actually has Noctua colors that you can choose, Noctua brown and Noctua beige. So I'm very excited to see how this is gonna look like. And it's all gonna go into the Be Quiet case, which is a bit of a blasphemy, but I think it's gonna be awesome. For the motherboard, we're gonna be using the Asus Z790 Creator Wi-Fi motherboard. And this is kind of the motherboard that goes into the color theme of things. Creator motherboard. I like the design. There's a bit of, well, it's golden. It's not really brown, but it kind of fits with the beige there. For the CPU, since we don't have 4090, we shouldn't go with an i9, should we? So where is my i7 13700K? 13700, there it is. This has been my test bench for a very, very long time. For all of the 13th and some of the 12th gen, I retested on this as well. So CPU goes in, boom, 13700K. You could install the bracket as well, but I'm not gonna. Next, I've got some RAM, okay? And this is Noctua Color RAM, as you can see. And I have spray painted some RAM that I did have. Now, this RAM used to be this Team Group Vulcan DDR5, black version of this. I've got another bit over here, but because Team Group accidentally sent me a few extras and I thought, do you know what? I've got a few extras, so let's try something different. So I asked Noctua, what is their actual brown color and the beige color, like what are they? And I'm also gonna leave it on the screen and in the description below if you want to make yourself spray paint, because there's lots of different websites out there that color match the spray paint. I think it's quite an okay match. I think it's slightly more red if I'm looking these towards them. Then even though this is supposed to be exactly the same Pantone color, it's slightly more reddish, but I think it's gonna be all right. So I could have taken the heatsink off, but I went a bit of a cowboy style here and literally just taped the contacts off and then literally just went off and started spray painting. Let's take these off now. Looks like these contacts are quite clean there. I used special frog tape for this, so it shouldn't leave any residue. Looks very, very good. Look at that. I think I like the beige color more than the dark brown. I'm just trying to blow these off so that there's no little bits that go into the motherboard sockets there or into the RAM slots. This looks very good as well. So let's install our Noctua RAM. That looks nice. Boom. So for the OS SSDs, I'm gonna keep it pretty simple here. I've got two SSDs. One of them is Samsung 980 Pro, which is going to be our OS drive. And because this drive already lived in this system before, I've already got everything installed, so I don't need to install OS or drivers or anything. It's just gonna be working. So that goes in there. And for the secondary drive, I'm using something special. This is called Solidigm P44 Pro, which is one of the new top-end drives. And this is super, super awesome because of their fast random read and write speeds. These drives actually beat some of the best drives on the market. I'm still completing the full benchmarks for these. Next, we're going to take up our cooler. And for the cooler, we're going to be using the best cooler that we have for Noctua, which is the Noctua NHD 15. And this is the Chromax black version, which means that the tower is actually painted black. But I'm not going to be using the black fans, which this cooler comes with, but I'm going to be changing the black fans to the brown fans. So it's a mix of two of these coolers because I want the black heatsink but brown fans. Now, since I've used both of these CPUs and coolers before, I'm going to give it a little clean. Okay, and thermal paste. I've got some Noctua NHT1, I think it's called. And what I like to do is spread it out. Because I've got the long Noctua screwdriver, I don't have to use any other screwdrivers or the screwdriver that comes with the Noctua cooler, because that is long enough to reach the bottom of the heatsink and screw it in. Okay, and now the fans. Goodness me, these clips are gone completely entangled. And I'm gonna put the fans in the middle and in the back because I don't want to cover completely this Noctua RAM, which is really, really nice underneath there. I'll still probably have to put it in the front just because this becomes so inefficient because the back cover here is in the way and it can't slot quite down. So I'm afraid that's where it's gonna have to go. So that's how it's gonna be. Let's plug these in. Now here we've got our case, and this is the Be Quiet DX500 FX or FX500. So basically the difference between this case and the normal D500 is that this one has the light wings attached as the case fans. So it already comes with like a bit upgraded fans. Oh, this is one of those cases where pulling the front panel off is like, feels like you're breaking the case. So as you can see, we've got 320mm light wings already attached in the front and then 140 in the back, but they are all coming out. And the interesting thing is, in order to screw in the fans in the front here, you're gonna have to put your screwdriver on the bottom and then screw them out from the back over there, because they're not like front screwed fans, but they come from the back. Now it's time we install these. These are the Noctua NFA12X25 fans, which are probably one of those now almost old school fans, because they're the really, really good fans that have been around for a long time and have been the market leading fans for a long time because of the quietness, the static pressure, and only now finally fans have started actually catching up with these. So we're gonna add a few of these to this case. Okay, before we put the rest of the fans in, we're gonna put the motherboard in because then it's easier. Let's see, okay. Standoffs are fine. Let's lift this bad boy in. What I already like about this case is that it's gonna be filled a lot with just all the insides. Once we put the GPU in as well, this case will be filled quite nicely. And it's quite a small case, which I actually like, because you don't need a big case to have in some of the basic, PC hardware. Now, this case might not fit all of the GPUs, especially some of the 4090s that are extra long. And if you plan to have a front AIO, because you can fit a 360mm AIO in the front, this is not going to fit in here as well. But because we are going air cooling, we're going to fit a lot of things in here, and it's going to look very nice and brown. As you can see, it's looking pretty good. But before I'm going to put the fan cables in, it's time to put these beautiful cables from Cable Mod. Now, you can make them yourself and customize them, and whichever way you want to color them and so on. but I have made them into these beautiful Noctua brown colors. So we've got the 24-pin motherboard cable, as you can see there. Then we've got the CPU cable, and the CPU cable is actually 4 plus 8. So 4 is on the left, and then 8 is on the right. Let's see if we can plug it in. Okay, the CPU cable is installed there as well, as you can see. Now this motherboard actually has a special 6-pin cable there as well for the front panel Type-C port. If you've got this ProArt Z790 Creator Wi-Fi motherboard ProArt, then if you use this front panel Type-C, which is a 20 gigabit speed, you still get quick charge function, and I think you can get up to 60 watts pulled from the front panel Type-C port. So I ordered an extra 6-pin PCIe connector that goes there just like that. I opted in actually leaving this hole here, because this is the place where you have the Be Quiet logo, this one. But this actually pops out and you can put cables through, which I did there, because the cables I can't get the bend right when I'm going behind there. Let's add a few more fans. Since we've got the case light on the side, for the GPU we have this here. This is the Noctua Asus RTX 4080, and I've got very mixed feelings about that. And I've made 2 videos about that GPU already, because as a guy who likes Noctua gear, I am liking the idea. Asus Noctua Duo, it's absolutely amazing. But I don't think this makes sense. And it looks a bit of a copy-paste from the previous generation. And you might be saying, look, this copy-paste, what you're claiming there, it's not copy-paste, because underneath they have actually improved the cooler design compared to the just tough 4080, for example. And they've added heat pipes, the vapor chamber is bigger, and you can find out all about it on Noctua website. But I think it's kind of a nonsense way of improving a thing. It's like adding a 17th cylinder to Bugatti Chiron or something like that, where something that is already good and very quiet would improve in it even more. And the 40 series doesn't look as improved compared to the 30 series. And that's why I'm saying copy paste, because it looks the same, even though underneath, yeah, it's all different, like the design, heatsink, and all of it is different underneath. But the idea is like a copy paste from previous generation, if that makes sense, because there isn't any innovation compared to the 4080 TUF, for example. So it is quieter in very fine situations compared to the TUF, but the TUF is already over-engineered because it's using actually a 4090 cooler. Most of the 4080s are just copy-paste coolers from 4090s. So we don't really need this massive Noctua cooler to keep it cool. In a normal environment, you're not gonna see or hear those fans going 100% speed, because the card doesn't get that hot. So that's why I'm saying it kind of doesn't make sense. At the same time, I'm liking the design. I love the idea. I like that people keep pushing the boundaries and designing different new cards and products like we have here. But compared to the 30 series, where we saw a massive improvement, I feel a little bit let down by this Noctua 4080. And I did order another cable from Cable Mods. This is the NVIDIA 16-pin 12-volt high-power cable. And as you can see, this has got the special Cable Mods kind of a clip in there for the bending and everything, so it doesn't let it bend so much underneath because it goes that way. There are different ends to this. Now I went with the 4 8-pin power cable, PCIe power cable, because if you don't have the connector, for example, you can still use these directly to your power supply, but you can also use 12 or 16 pin to 16 pin. There's a few different options there. So this is a 600 watt, you know, supported, because if you have 3, for example, that's not 600 watt, and if you have 2, this is not 600 watt, but this is the full fat speeds. And would you look at that? As you can see, the Noctua card is a bit saggy, but there is a little kind of a sag holder, which we'll put in later to fix that. Right now, we're gonna have to tackle the cable management in the back, as you can see, and then the power supply. For the power supply, I'm using Deepcool PQ1000M power supply. It's very, very short, so it's quite small, which nicely fits in the case. It's 1000 watts, and it's quite affordable, 80 plus gold, you know, rated. Now we could have gone 850 as well, but I think I wanted to be a little bit safe with a 1000 watt. Now, the power supply, even though wattage wise is good, you know, power supply, it's enough and things, I wouldn't really recommend exactly this power supply with this particular build, just because it doesn't have enough connectors, right? Because the motherboard wants a 6-pin PCIe power connector, right? And then the GPU wants 3, because the actual, you know, NVIDIA splitter has 3 of these attached. But we've got a 4 cable, but we've got 3 plugged in there. So we're gonna make it work. It's gonna work, you know, the GPU is gonna get enough juice, but we're not gonna get the quick charge working for the front panel Type-C, because we don't have a connector for this 6-pin PCIe, because there isn't enough cables and connectors on the power supply. Even though it's able to provide the power, there just isn't enough cables. Look at that. It's naturally orange. Orange there. Orange there. Okay, let's see if the XMP is gonna work as well. Alrighty, and we've got the post. Come on, give us the windows. Yes, Windows circle. There we go. So we've got our 13700K there. We've got 64 gigs of RAM. Seems like it's working at 5600 megatransfers per second as well. We've got Samsung 980 Pro. That's where our OS is on. And then we've got the Solidigm P44 Pro working as well. Intel iGPU on. RTX 4080 is on. Now, what happens here? Whoa. 240 watts, and with thermal throttling. A lot of the P cores, as you can see, were just instantly 100 degrees. So I'm gonna have to check the mounting of this, because this cooler should be much better than that, unless there's something wrong with this particular cooler, because that's the same cooler that didn't perform very well in our CPU cooler roundups. So perhaps I'll have to change that. I do have another one exactly the same, so maybe I'll have to change that. Maybe there's something wrong with this cooler. Very interesting though, because I'm looking, yeah, about 38 watts, and to run it at 48 degrees, that's a bit hot. But if we are checking the firmware, let's put this 1080p, pulling 314 watts, and it's whisper quiet. Is it even, like, I can't hear anything. It's very quiet. So that's what is very good about this 4080, is that it's extremely quiet. It's just silent. Like, it's not breaking a sweat. So the build is now complete, and off the camera I actually changed a few things. Because first of all, the cooler. Do you remember when I finished the previous clip, the cooler was very quickly overheating? I mean, we were thermal throttling with the NHD15 instantly. As soon as we hit the Cinebench load, boom, with thermal throttling. And we were only pulling 240, 50 watts, something like that. So what I did was I took the NHD15, I did a few different mounts of, cooling. So made sure that the actual mounting is perfect. Tried different thermal paste, nothing changed. As you can see from the B-roll, it instantly thermal throttles every single time. And because I do actually have one of my older versions from my Mac Pro killer from 2019 or something like that, I used the NHD15 there as well. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna take that old heatsink as well and then try it, because it's the same heatsink. I thought maybe there's something wrong with the heat sinks, maybe the heat pipes, something's happened with the heat pipes. I tried it with the second NHD15 as well, and in there, and it's exactly the same situation, instantly thermal throttling. I tried different thermal paste, nothing happened. Then I changed out to this one, the Noctua NHU12A, and as soon as I mounted this one, things started to look better instantly. And then for the thermal paste, I also used the Arctic MX6, which is a bit of a maybe blasphemy for this PC. Shouldn't be using Arctic things. I should have used NHD or the NHT1. I think it's the Noctua thermal paste. But after trying the Noctua thermal paste and then the Arctic one, this one works slightly better with the Arctic one as well, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But now, once I have finished the build, I think this will look much better, and does look much better than the previous one, because now we have visibility for our Noctua RAM, which we didn't before. But also, that cooler is smaller and performs better, which I'm going to show you in a moment. I did use the cooler from the NHD15 up here. So this top cooler isn't the A12X25 fan anymore. So not one of those fans, but actually the cooler fan, just so that we have a little bit more brown in there. Now I can't fit another one in there because it's actually a little bit of a different size, but it works there. So then let's test this PC. I'm gonna put the side panel on as well, because then we get a proper airflow of what we had in the case there. But just because I still have the films on, you might not be able to see it through as well. Well, actually it looks all right. So then, just to remind everybody that with the previous NHD15 we were thermal throttling within 1 or 2 seconds, and right now if I'm gonna press start, let's go back here, check this out. 240, 94 degrees, we're still fine. 97, still fine. And now we were thermal throttling. So halfway through that, with thermal throttling, which is much better than before. Interestingly, this cooler with the same fans and same thermal paste runs that 13700K hotter than the 13900K. If you remember the cooler test we did, on that one it runs it at 100 degrees at around 300 something watts or something like that, and it pulls down, but it is able to cool it or keep it at much better temperatures. If I'm not mistaken, I remember this cooler, the NHU12A, cooling the 13900K a whole run of Cinebench, but it could be because it is faster because of the 24 cores we have on the 13900K, and then it's able to keep that load in there. But this is still much better than the NHD15. 30-something thousand points in Cinebench is pretty good score. As you can see, second one here, still not thermal throttling. There we go. So about halfway through we are thermal throttling. Now, it is quite warm in the room here as well, about 26.4 degrees. I mean, not for you all, it might not be so warm, but here in the UK it is quite warm, and I'm in a small room, so this all heats up. If I had the room temperature lower, like maybe 23, 22, something like that, we might be able to complete the whole run without thermal throttling, but just because we're so warm right now, that's why we are thermal throttling. But let's talk about some other benchmarks. First of all, the SSD benchmark. As you can see here, this is the secondary drive, the Solidigm P44 Pro, and we're getting incredible results here. Read speed over 7.1 gigabytes per second, write speed over 6.7 gigabytes per second, and random read and write speeds, they are like the fastest I have ever seen on any of the drives I have tested, which is just absolutely ridiculous. If you're interested in creator application benchmarks, then I'm going to leave them here. So for example, Photoshop from Beautybench, you can see that one here. Lightroom Classic from Beautybench, Premiere Pro from Beautybench, After Effects from Beautybench, DaVinci Resolve. If you are interested in picking any of these up, then I'm going to leave the link in the description below where you can purchase them or pick or check out any of these ones. The thing is about this PC is that it is extremely silent, first of all. Even at full load, we are very, very quiet and very silent. That GPU and CPU combo there now with the fans, it is, I mean, Noctua does one thing well, which is the silence. And this is where, you know, all of this comes in. As much as I have mixed feelings about the GPU, I can't argue about the silence as much as this, even when pushed to the absolute limits. I think that's where you really see the silent operation of this Noctua RTX 4080. The other bit is the power of these components. I mean, you can stack a lot of power in there. I mean, the motherboard has 10 gigabit ports. As a creator, you've got everything in there. We've got Thunderbolt, we've got fast USB connectivity, front and back, USB-C and USB Type A. Front panel also supports fast charging up to 60 watts. So if you want to charge your phone or perhaps even laptop, the USB-C port is ridiculously powerful there. We've got 4 M.2 SSD slots in there to fill with Gen 4 drives if you're interested. SATA drives, RAM up to 192 gigabytes if you go with the 48 gigabyte versions. But also it's quite small. What I like about this is everything inside this PC looks compact and filled. You're not gonna have empty space. I mean, in here I have this full tower, and as you can see, it is much bigger than that one over here. But this Noctua GPU, for example, this fills the PC nicely. You've got the cooler. It is quite a small tower, but still good airflow to put through. So I'm liking that. We're not compromising on any of the front panel connectors, any of the other bits. You can fit lots of things in there. You've got hard drive cages as well. If you want to put 3.5-inch rust drives in there, everything's possible. So I like that aspect as well. Overall, I think this is one of the nicest builds I've done on the channel. Do you agree? What would you change? Would you have done something differently? All the parts are linked in the description below, but if you scroll further down, you can see some build guides for creators. So if you do want to build yourself the best bang for buck creator PC and you're not so bothered what it looks like, perhaps you want to use some of these parts in here, you're very welcome to. But in those videos, I'm going to share the best performance parts for you. If you don't want to waste any money, those videos are for you. Pick up the one that's closest to your budget and check it out down below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll meet you in the comment section below. Bye bye.